Wife contracts STD and ends up in hospital after infidelity with her boss is exposed. It was barely 8:45 a.m., but this Monday was already shaping up to be the worst I'd ever had. I'd kissed my wife, Danielle, goodbye earlier that morning. She'd been my partner for 15 years and was an incredibly successful real estate agent, judging by her impressive stack of commissions and bonuses. "You have a good day," she chimed in, that overly polished realtor voice she knew I couldn't stand. Her smirk suggested she was holding back a secret, which only added to my irritation. On the way to the office, I couldn't stop thinking about the heap of reports due by the end of the month. I got in at my usual time, 7:45, dropped off my briefcase, and headed to the men's room for a quick coffee break. That's when everything went sideways. While in the office, I was suddenly overwhelmed by a sharp pain while urinating, prompting a loud yelp. My boss, Charles Denton, quickly came to assist, expressing deep concern. I described the burning sensation, and we both noticed an alarming greenish discharge. Charles immediately advised me to seek medical attention and reassured me not to worry about the pending reports. He promised to handle them and suggested I take the necessary time off. Grateful, I thanked him for his understanding and support, appreciating his compassionate approach during such a distressing moment. I splashed water on my face, grabbed my briefcase, and headed out the door. I told the receptionist I wouldn't be back for at least a day, maybe longer. Normally, I'd see my regular doctor, but his office was clear across town, and I doubted I'd get an appointment today. Instead, I opted for the nearby urgent care just a few blocks from the office. Once there, they quickly took some samples and directed me to the waiting room. It felt like hours, but only 30 minutes passed before a nurse called out sharply, "Miles Jensen." She gestured for me to come over with a look that made me feel less than human. About her demeanor, I followed her to the observation room. "Have a seat, Mr. Jensen," she instructed coldly. I sat down and watched as she took my vitals, blood pressure, temperature, the works, without much conversation. After jotting down the details, she mentioned, "The doctor will see you shortly," and left the room. Not long after, there was a knock on the door, and an older man in a white coat entered, holding a folder. "Mr. Jensen, I'm Dr. Porter," he introduced himself. Sitting down, he opened the folder and didn't mince words. "Your tests show you have gonorrhea," I repeated, stunned. "Gonorrhea?" "Yes. It's a sexually transmitted disease," Dr. Porter said, giving me a look that suggested I should have known better. "I'll prescribe an antibiotic, and you should avoid any sexual activity for at least 7 days after you finish your treatment. If you still have symptoms, see your primary doctor." The news hit me like a truck, but Dr. Porter's straightforward manner helped cut through the shock. I nodded, processing the steps I needed to take next. He added that other tests were ongoing, and it could take a couple of weeks or more to get the full results. He then asked for a list of people I'd recently been in contact with. "I've only been intimate with one person in my entire life," I told him. "My wife." He gave me a sad look for a moment before checking my chart. "If I got it from her, wouldn't she show symptoms?" I asked. "Not necessarily, Mr. Jensen," he replied. "She might confuse them for something like a bladder or vaginal infection. It's important she gets checked soon. Waiting could lead to serious complications." "Excuse me, Mr. Jensen," he said, handing me some medication and having me sign a few forms. "Take care of yourself and make sure to follow up with your doctor," he advised as he left. Feeling a mix of emotions, I finished up and headed to my car. I called my boss to update him. "I'm sorry to hear that, Miles," Charles said. "Don't worry. Your privacy is my priority. You'll take a leave and return when you're ready. I've taken care of your reports, so just focus on getting better." "Thank you," I replied, ending the call. Next, I had to talk to my parents, whom I never hid anything from. I hit their speed dial, and my dad answered. "Hey, son, are you at work?" he asked. "No, Dad. I'm dealing with a health issue and need to talk with you and Mom," I said. "Of course," he replied. "Are the kids okay?" "They're fine," I assured him. "But I'd rather not discuss this over the phone." "Come over then. We'll have coffee and talk," he suggested. We hung up, and I put away my phone. ready to face the next conversation, I said, realizing I needed to get my documents ready. I guess I'd better head inside and pack my things. That sounds like a good plan, Dad replied. And you have to talk to Danielle about the STD. She needs to get tested as well to prevent any further spread. Maybe the girls should stay with us for a bit, Mom suggested. Things might get tense at home with everything going on. You're right, Dad agreed. Have them stay a few days until things calm down. Look, son, why don't you bring the girls over after school? We'll take care of getting them to school on time. I will. Thanks, Dad, I said. We chatted a bit more before I got up to leave. Dad hugged me at the door. It'll work out, son, he reassured me. Just don't do anything rash. I know you're hurt and might want revenge on Danielle, but remember, Romans 12:19, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Don't make me bail you out of jail. Think about your girls. I grinned. No problem, Dad. I got it. I got back in my car and headed home. Dad was right about one thing. I did want revenge on Danielle and whoever else was involved. After over 15 years of loving her exclusively, this felt like the ultimate betrayal. When I arrived home, I started going through my files to find my old tax returns. I also needed to find Danielle's because about 8 years ago, she had suggested we file taxes separately to save money. Back then, it made sense. But when I looked at her tax forms, I discovered the real reason she wanted us to file separately. Danielle had earned much more in bonuses and commissions than I had realized. Seeing how little she had put into our joint bank account, I began to wonder, where had all that extra money gone? My search led me to a folder full of bank statements from a bank I didn't recognize. The latest statement showed she had saved almost $1 million over the past 8 years. What was her plan, I wondered? Was this some kind of college fund, or was it her escape fund? I collected the statements and her tax forms, put them in my folder, and headed back to my car. Just as I was about to leave, my phone beeped with a text from Danielle. Showing might run late. Don't wait for dinner. Yeah, sure, I muttered to myself. I replied, no problem. See you when you get home. As I sent the message, I couldn't help but wonder if she noticed that I didn't say I love you like I usually did. I arrived at Gina Hawkins's office building, parked the car, and headed to her suite. As I walked in, I was greeted by an attractive blonde receptionist. I'm here to see Gina Hawkins, I told her. I have a 12:30 appointment. After a quick check on her computer, she smiled and led me to Gina's office. Gina stood to greet me, shaking my hand warmly. It's good to see you, Miles, she said, smiling. Would you like some coffee? That would be great. Thanks, I replied. Gina turned to the receptionist. Could you bring 2 cups of coffee, please? And maybe some butter and nuts? Sure, the receptionist replied, before leaving the room. She returned shortly with 2 cups and small butter portions. Gina motioned for me to sit, and I took a seat across from her. I was surprised to get a call from your father this morning, Gina began. So, you're facing a problem that needs legal attention. Yeah. It looks like Danielle's been unfaithful, I said. I'm sorry to hear that, Gina responded, her expression sympathetic. I always thought you two were solid. So did I admitted. But I guess I was wrong. Can you tell me about your options? I asked. I explained the situation, including my visit to the clinic and the discovery of the hidden bank statements earlier that day. Gina nodded thoughtfully. I understand how tough this must be, she said. Let me explain a bit about how divorce works here. It's not necessarily about justice. It often comes down to finances. In this state, we have no-fault divorce laws, but you can still file on grounds of adultery if you have strong evidence. What about the STD she gave me? I asked. Gina nodded. That's a strong point, she acknowledged. But her lawyer might claim you caught it from someone else. We know that's not true, but we need to convince a judge. And the money she set aside? She could argue it was meant as a surprise for retirement. You don't really believe that, do you? Number it seems more like an exit strategy, Gina replied. She's probably waiting for an opportune time, maybe after your daughters finish school, to leave without complications. But proving that in court will be difficult. So I'm just out of luck, I pressed. Not necessarily, Gina reassured me. I can hire a private detective to investigate. It's pricey, but it could provide the solid evidence we need in court. Would you like to proceed with that? Yes, let's go ahead, I decided. Great, Gina responded. I'll need all the details you can provide. Her car's make and model, license plate number, places she frequents. I pulled out my phone. Actually, I installed a phone tracker app when she lost her phone a few months back. Let me check if it's still active. I opened the app and located her phone at a house on the north side of town. I showed Gina the address. Perfect, she said, jotting it down. I'll get in touch with my investigator right now. She made the call, giving the investigator all the details we had. After hanging up, she looked at me with a determined expression. We'll handle this as discreetly as possible, she assured me. Okay, we're all set. If there's something going on, we'll find out soon enough. Now let's focus on your situation. You have two teenage daughters, Emma and Riley, ages 14 and 13, correct? Yes, that's right. They're not quite old enough to choose which parent they want to live with, but it's getting close. I want to seek custody, I confirmed. Understood, Gina nodded. You should know that courts typically favor the mother for primary custody. However, we can certainly make a case for you, especially given the circumstances. Who's been the main caretaker? Danielle often goes out in the evenings, so I've been the one at home, I explained. Got it. And just to clarify, are you certain the girls are biologically yours? She inquired cautiously. I believe so, yes. At this point, does it matter? My name is on their birth certificates, and I've raised them since they were babies, I replied, a bit defensively. I understand, Gina reassured me, but it might be good to know for sure. I can refer you to a lab for a paternity test if you'd like. Okay, I'll think about that, I said. What about the house situation? We don't have a mortgage. The house was my grandparents', and now it's in a family trust under my parents' names. They let us live there, I explained. Good. That simplifies things a bit. No mortgage issues to deal with, she noted. There will still be personal property and possibly other assets to consider dividing. I'll prepare a list of what you need to address. Is there anything else I need to do right now? I asked. Not at this moment, she replied. I'll start drafting the paperwork, but let's wait to see what the private investigator finds before we proceed too far. However, go ahead and complete the checklist I give you. Do you think I should confront her about this personally? I wondered aloud. I said, realizing I needed to get my documents ready. I guess I'd better head inside and pack my things. That sounds like a good plan, Dad replied. And you have to talk to Danielle about the STD. She needs to get tested as well to prevent any further spread. Maybe the girls should stay with us for a bit, Mom suggested. Things might get tense at home with everything going on. You're right, Dad agreed. Have them stay a few days until things calm down. Look, son, why don't you bring the girls over after school? We'll take care of getting them to school on time. I will. Thanks, Dad, I said. We chatted a bit more before I got up to leave. Dad hugged me at the door. It'll work out, son, he reassured me. Just don't do anything rash. I know you're hurt and might want revenge on Danielle. But remember Romans 12:19. Vengeance is mine. I will repay, says the Lord. Don't make me bail you out of jail. Think about your girls. I grinned. No problem, Dad. I got it. I got back in my car and headed home. Dad was right about one thing. I did want revenge on Danielle and whoever else was involved. After over 15 years of loving her exclusively, this felt like the ultimate betrayal. When I arrived home, I started going through my files to find my old tax returns. I also needed to find Danielle's, because about 8 years ago, she had suggested we file taxes separately to save money. Back then, it made sense. But when I looked at her tax forms, I discovered the real reason she wanted us to file separately. Danielle had earned much more in bonuses and commissions than I had realized. Seeing how little she had put into our joint bank account, I began to wonder where all that extra money had gone. My search led me to a folder full of bank statements from a bank I didn't recognize. The latest statement showed she had saved almost $1 million over the past 8 years. What was her plan, I wondered? Was this some kind of future college fund? A secret investment? or something more selfish? I collected the statements and her tax forms, put them in my folder, and headed to my car. Just as I was about to leave, my phone beeped with a text from Danielle. Showing might run late. Don't wait for dinner. Yeah, sure, I said to myself. I replied, no problem. See you when you get home. As I sent the message, I couldn't help but wonder if she noticed that I didn't say I love you like I usually did. I arrived at Gina Hawkins' office building, parked the car, and headed to her suite, conversation as light as possible. You caught her cheating, didn't you? Emma asked. Her question caught me completely off guard. I was taken aback. What makes you think that? I asked. She looked down, slightly embarrassed. I've heard her on the phone a couple of times, she confessed. She was using that fake voice she does. You know, the one that annoys you. I nodded, silently encouraging her to go on. It was something like, I can't wait to see you again, love. And then she giggled. Not like herself at all. It sounded very personal. I'm sorry I didn't say anything sooner. I know you don't like gossip, she added quickly. It's all right, I reassured her, giving her a hug. Riley then added, she's been acting really strange lately, like she doesn't really want to talk to us much anymore. Do you feel that way too, Riley? I asked, turning to my younger daughter. She nodded. Yeah, like we're bothering her. I gave them both a reassuring hug. You can bother me any time, I smiled. But right now, I need to swab your cheeks for a test. Cheek swab? Riley inquired, eyeing the test kit. Yes, I confirmed. My lawyer thinks we should do a DNA test. You don't think we're really your kids? Emma asked, a hint of worry in her voice. I know you're my kids, I reassured them both. But we just need to confirm everything legally. So, you're getting a divorce? Emma asked directly. It looks like it, I acknowledged. Isn't there any way you could forgive her? Riley asked softly. I don't think so, I said gently. She made a mistake that's pretty serious. I had to see a doctor about it this morning. Emma gasped, almost slipping out a swear word. Sorry, she muttered. It's okay, I said with a weak smile. I felt like swearing today too. Now, let's get these samples done. I swabbed the inside of Emma's cheek gently, then did the same for Riley. Once their samples were secured in the kit, I took a swab from my own cheek and placed it into a separate vial. Okay, you two, head upstairs and pack enough for a couple of nights. We need to be ready to leave in 15 minutes. And don't forget your homework, I added. As the girls went to their rooms to gather their things, I organized the DNA test kit. My plan was to drop the kids off at my parents' house and then take the kit to the lab. As we drove, Emma asked, Daddy, if you get divorced, can I stay with you? Yeah, me too, Riley chimed in. I hope so, girls, I said. I'm going to ask for custody, but you need to understand. Courts often favor the mother. I don't want to stay with her, Emma said. Right now, I hate her for what she did to us. I thought about encouraging her not to hate her mother, but I held back. She was voicing feelings I knew too well. I understand how you feel, sweetheart, I said. Just remember, no matter what happens, I love you both immensely, and I'll always be there for you. I love you too, Daddy, Emma said, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her tears made my resolve even stronger, fueled by my anger toward Danielle and whoever else was involved. Interest in watching Danielle in such a compromising situation, I was compelled to understand the context of their conversation. I see you're married, the man remarked, noting her rings. For the moment, Danielle replied casually. I noticed you're married too, she observed, glancing at his hand. Yeah, my wife and I have an open relationship, he said. And you? It's not open in that sense, but I take my freedoms as they come. So your husband doesn't know? No, he doesn't, she admitted. He has no idea what kind of person he's married to. I clenched my fists. Hearing her say that, it was beyond cruel. What's the matter? Isn't he good to you at home? He had better be. I taught him everything he knows, she bragged. You taught him? Believe it or not, he was a 23-year-old virgin, super religious, doesn't smoke, drink, or even curse. He'd probably have a breakdown if I swore around him. He didn't even know how to make love until we got married. Damn, the man reacted, surprised. Sounds like you think he's a loser. So why stay with him? Is there love? In some way, I suppose. He's a good father. Looks after our girls well, never complains when I come home late. But beyond that, he's dull. Are the girls even his? She shrugged. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe. It doesn't matter much to me. He believes they're his, and that's what counts. I paused the audio there, my body trembling. I couldn't decide whether to scream or throw up. The depth of her betrayal wasn't just physical, it was personal, psychological, calculated. I resumed the playback. How long have you been fooling around? Since forever, she said, laughing lightly. Throughout our marriage, really. He has no clue. He's never been with anyone else, so how would he know any different? That's cold, the man replied, almost impressed. That's reality, Danielle responded flatly. So do you plan to stick with him? Yeah, for now. At least until the girls finish high school. 4 or 5 more years. I'll be ready to leave by then. Why wait? Because the courts usually give custody to the mom, and the last thing I want is to end up with 2 teenage girls on my hands. What are you doing after this? Maybe a party. Maybe a cruise. Costa Rica sounds nice. I don't know. I've got options. I've got a couple guys. Can you sneak away for the weekend? Sure, she answered without hesitation. I'll tell Miles I have a mandatory weekend seminar or something. He'll believe anything I say. Let me know when you're ready. I will, she said, laughing softly. He got up to leave. Can't wait to see you again, honey. Same here. And then she said the words that gutted me all over again, this time to an empty room. Oh, Miles, you have no idea what's coming. I sat there, stunned, my breathing shallow. The laptop screen glowed as I wiped away tears. Hearing the woman I gave my life to dismantle it so casually felt like being skinned alive, not physically, but emotionally. I picked up the phone and called Gina. I just finished watching the video, I said quietly. You were right. It was enlightening. Gina's response was sharp and focused. What's your next move? Burn it to the ground, I replied, my voice steady. Consider it done, she affirmed. Anything else? Yes, he continued, there is more concerning news. Our preliminary tests suggest that she may be HIV, positive A, cold wave of shock swept through me. I found out this morning she has gonorrhea, I said, still processing the news. And are you receiving treatment for that? He asked. Yes, I confirmed. That's good to hear. However, I strongly recommend you get tested for HIV as soon as possible. If you can see your primary care physician tomorrow, that would be best. It's important to know your status early. I nodded slowly, absorbing his recommendation. How long will she be in the coma? I asked, shifting the conversation back to Danielle. It depends on her progress, Dr. Blake replied, but it could be anywhere from 10 days to 2 weeks. After that, her stay here may extend, depending on the speed of her recovery. Can I see her now? I asked, my voice tentative yet hopeful. Absolutely, he said, standing up. She needs your support now more than ever. He led me to a nearby hallway and pointed to a room down the corridor. She's in room 5. Thank you, doctor, I said, shaking his hand before walking toward the ICU room, my thoughts racing. I stepped into the room and was hit with the reality of it all. Danielle lay still, swathed in bandages. One of her legs was in a full cast, stretching from hip to toe. Her face, bruised, swollen, stitched. Her chest rose and fell slowly, aided by machines that beeped quietly. She looked like a woman who had survived a war. I said a silent prayer. Then, pulling the envelope from my coat, I carefully opened it, took out my wedding ring, and placed it inside. I wrote her name on the front, resealed the envelope, and approached the nurse monitoring her vitals. Could you make sure she gets this when she wakes up? I asked. Of course, the nurse said softly. You can place it on that tray over there. I set the envelope on the metal tray beside her bed and looked down at her, broken, unconscious, unaware of the storm she'd left behind. She was still wearing her wedding rings. Gently, I removed them and slid them into my coat pocket. Goodbye, Danielle, I whispered. I'll see you later. The nurse gave me a compassionate smile as I nodded and quietly exited the room. On the way home, I called Loretta to update her. She was stunned by the news, especially the possibility of HIV. Greg, you know Frank won't be comfortable with her staying here if she's HIV positive, Loretta said cautiously. He's worried about the kids. I understand, I replied. You have to prioritize your family. Exactly. I'll help with moving her things, but after that, I need to step back, she said. I appreciate it, Loretta. Truly. It's late, she said. Try to get some rest and keep me posted. I will. We ended the call. By the time I pulled into my driveway, it was past midnight. Exhausted, I went straight to bed and fell asleep the moment my head hit the pillow. Danielle turned to look at me, her face pale. An apartment? She asked, her voice dry. Yes, I confirmed. Loretta will help you move in. All your belongings are already there. The utilities are in your name. I pulled out another envelope and placed it on the small table beside her. Here's your half of our joint savings, minus the deposit and 2 months' rent for the apartment. Since your car was totaled, you'll also be receiving a separate check from the insurance company directly. She stared at the envelope, stunned. And by the way, I continued, I know about the escape fund, the separate bank account you've been funneling money into. My attorney's already frozen it. If you sign the divorce papers, she'll release the remaining funds, minus my share, of course. Danielle's eyes narrowed. I'll fight you for it, she said with unexpected defiance. I don't think that would be wise, I replied evenly. Unless you want everything I've gathered, photos, videos, the audio, to go public. And I assure you, it's damning. Her expression deflated. Have your lawyer review the papers, I added. I believe you'll find the terms are as fair as they can be under the circumstances. Danielle turned to Loretta, who had remained silent until now, her arms folded tightly. You should have listened, Loretta said coldly. You lied to everyone, Greg, your kids, and me. Danielle looked broken. I know I messed up. I'm so sorry. That and a few bucks will get you a cup of coffee, Loretta snapped. I'll help you settle into your apartment, but after that, I'm done. You want to fix this? Start with an apology, a real one, to your husband and to your daughters. Through her tears, Danielle turned to me. Greg, I'm sorry. I know it doesn't mean much now, but I do love you. Right, I said quietly. It doesn't mean much. Not anymore. Sign the papers, Danielle. She nodded, overwhelmed and silent. Goodbye, I said as I stood up. Can I call the girls? She asked, her voice cracking. You can call them, I replied, pausing at the door. But it's up to them if they want to talk to you. I understand, she whispered. Thank you. For that, at least. You're welcome, I said, without turning back. I walked out of the room, aware of the nurses glancing in my direction, perhaps judging me, perhaps just surprised by the scene. But they weren't living in my skin. They hadn't lived through my betrayal. I headed straight to my parents' house, where the smell of my mom's lasagna greeted me like a warm blanket. I sat down at the table, surrounded by people who still loved me. For the first time in a long while, I felt safe. Loretta will help you move in, I said. Danielle turned to look at her sister, who had remained silent until now. All your belongings are already there, and the utilities are set up in your name, I added, pulling out another envelope. Here's your half of our joint savings, minus the deposit and 2 months' rent for the apartment. Since your car was totaled, you'll also be receiving an insurance payout directly. She took the envelope from my hand, her touch hesitant. The room filled with a thick silence, heavy with the finality of our fractured life. She nodded slowly, holding the envelope close. By the way, I said, my voice steady, I know about the escape fund you set up. My attorney has frozen the account. If you sign the divorce papers, she'll release the funds, minus my half, of course. Danielle blinked, stunned, her face twisted into defiance. I'll fight you for it, she declared. I don't think that would be wise, I countered calmly. Unless you want all the evidence I've gathered to go public. It's quite damning. Her shoulders slumped. The fire in her eyes faded. Have your lawyer review the papers, I continued. I believe you'll find the terms are as fair as they can be, under the circumstances. Danielle turned to Loretta for support, but found none. You should have listened, Loretta said sharply. You lied to everyone, Greg, your kids, and me. I agreed to help you move into your apartment when you're discharged, but after that, I'm done. You need to sort yourself out." Danielle started to sob. "I'm so sorry," she cried, eyes flicking between us, looking for even the smallest scrap of sympathy. "That and a few bucks will get you a coffee," Loretta snapped back. "I won't let you near my family again until you make things right, starting with a real apology to your husband and daughters." Through her tears, Danielle looked at me. "Greg, I'm so sorry. I know it doesn't mean much now. It doesn't mean much. Sign the papers, Danielle." She nodded, overwhelmed and silent. "Goodbye, Danielle." As I turned to leave, she called out, "Greg, can I call the girls, please?" "You can call them," I said, pausing at the door. "But it's up to them if they want to talk to you." "I understand," she murmured. "Thank you. For that at least." "You're welcome," I replied, without turning back. I left the room, fully aware of the disapproving glances from the nurses. But it wasn't their decision to judge. They hadn't lived this. Driving to my parents' house, I felt the weight of everything hit me at once. But there, surrounded by the smell of Mom's lasagna, I found a brief moment of comfort. The divorce process concluded smoothly 3 months later. I found myself not only legally free from Danielle, but also relieved to learn that I was HIV negative. A fortunate result, mirrored by Danielle, surprisingly. To my surprise, Gina handed me a check, over $450,000, half of the secret account Danielle had amassed. With no immediate use for such a sum, I transferred most of it into college funds for Emma and Riley. Life found a new rhythm. My daughters were my anchor, keeping me grounded through the turbulent transitions of single fatherhood. And though managing 2 teenage girls wasn't always easy, my mum's support was invaluable. Danielle, from what I gathered, was settling into her new life as a single woman. She'd resumed her real estate career, joining a new firm after her former one let her go over the scandal. The girls said she was doing better, maybe even changing. Meanwhile, I noticed subtle shifts at church. Homemade pies, plates of lasagna from kindly women who always managed to smile a little longer at me. "Dad, you need to start dating again," Emma said one night as we cleared dishes. "It's not good for you to be alone. I wouldn't even know where to start," I laughed. "Besides, I'm not alone. You two keep me pretty busy." "We won't be around forever," Riley chimed in, half joking. "You can still ask someone to dinner, right?" They weren't wrong. Maybe it was time. That Wednesday, I ran into Rhonda Carson at the church coffee shop. A widow raising her teenage daughter alone, she had recently brought over a casserole I couldn't stop thinking about. "Hi, Rhonda. How are you?" I asked. "Hanging in there, Greg. How about you?" "I'm doing okay. Really enjoyed that casserole last week." "Thank you." "That's good to hear," she smiled. "It can be tough managing on your own, can't it?" "Yeah," I nodded. "It's a challenge sometimes, but we manage." We talked about the chaos of raising teenagers solo, the unexpected joys and exhausting demands. There was an ease between us that felt grounding. Finally, I said, "Rhonda, I'm pretty new to this, but would you like to have dinner with me sometime?" "Maybe this Friday." She smiled. "Yes, Greg, I'd like that." "Great. How about that new Texas Roadhouse?" "Sounds perfect," she replied. "It's a date." As I walked back to my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Light. Maybe this really was the beginning of something new.